That's exactly what happens. Technical issue and human interaction. Environmental related issues and the human risk factors. So today we're going to be talking about the developing psychological and countermeasures for analog astronauts living in austere, isolated environments. My name is Dr. Maria Harney, and I'm a psychiatrist. My specialty is in psychiatry, and I'm deepening my interest in the space medicine and synthetic biology. The situation that you saw right now involves a couple of psychological risk factors. And it's funny because before every presentation, something happens. When I was presenting at ISDC, I'll probably tell you the story if we have enough time. Something happened that involved a human interpersonal interaction that will likely happen between the crew members in space. So today, what we encountered already is technical issue, human reaction, decision making, because I was thinking whether I shall present you without those slides with pictures or shall we get this thing going. But anyhow, besides that, I'm an analog astronaut. So how many of you are analog astronauts here? One, two people. So I'll briefly will say what analog astronaut is. My journey started when I called Dr. Susan Jewell, the founder of the Mars Academy USA, and she learned about my background in medicine, and she said, would you like to join a low fidelity mission here in Vasquez Rocks, California? And I said, sure, I would love to become an analog astronaut, but I had no idea what it entitles, because I've never been to one. In analog astronaut missions, you have pre-simulation, simulation, where you are simulating a living on Mars or other planetary surfaces, and the post-sim, the compression. So our pre-sim for our low-fidelity mission was training process, getting familiar with the protocols. The simulation was only 5 days, and I thought that should be easy. I was hiking, I'm active, go fitness, that should be easy. So the first day when we arrived there, in desert the temperature drops, right? It was so cold. So I started having my headache, and I started having doubts. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I doing this? 5 days, the mission. Then of course I recovered, remembering about all the cool researches that we're going to be doing. But even one day gave me this psychological problem where I started having my doubts. Now imagine 3 years on a journey to Mars. So yes, so why is it important? That day didn't leave a particular doubt in my head why psychological problems are important. Is because we're all human beings. Technical issues, we react, or no technical issues, we react. The biggest risk factor for the space exploration till nowadays. So this one doesn't look too scared, but if the astronaut is scared, he might just decide to jump out of the spacecraft and kill himself and the crew. Actually, that issue was described in 1959 issue of the American Journal of Psychiatry. Separation anxiety. The temptation to escape through suicide into oblivion may be accompanied by an urge to destroy the space vehicle and the rest of the crew. 2 years before Yuri Gagarin went into space. Even though his mission lasted only 108 minutes, today, 60 years after, we're talking about 3 years journey, and even more if we think about the technical issues. Selection process criteria. So my position in the crew was astropsychiatrist, and I joined 3 missions fully, and I joined 2 missions as a part of the remote medical team. So my duties as an astropsychiatrist were to do a lot of evaluations, pre-sim, in-sim, and post-sim, and that included a bunch of interviews, that included the evaluation for any particular disqualification matters and mental disorders, and qualification for the job of the crew members. So the selection process is vigorous. It includes all of that and beyond. Ability to perform under stressful conditions is very important. A lot of those are based on the teamwork, and the leadership skills are very important. I was commander in one of the missions. In our missions, our selection criteria are based on based on their physical suitability, mental health. We also evaluate personality, and we do believe that multidisciplinary knowledge of the crew is very important, because if it's 5 of us, if it's 6 of us, we have only one physician on board, physician is dead, which actually another problem psychologically, you know, what if one person dies? But we'll discuss that. That's right. And those are big challenges, because as we're talking about the long duration space flight, that imposes additional challenges, because we cannot predict that long in the future. It's very challenging. Also, the commercial sector of the space flight is growing. So what are those problems that we encounter the most? Depression, anxiety, fatigue. This is where we're going to be focusing today. Depression is about 6-7% of population. Anxiety is even more common, 30% of population. And those are indeed the most common in-flight and post-flight. Of course, each of those problems can influence cognition, emotion, perception, behavior, performance of the astronaut. Why is it important? It's important on an everyday basis, because the schedule is very, very strict, but also it is important because of the human error. Let's just imagine for a second, it's not the subject of my talk today, but let's imagine a medical emergency. What if astronaut already experiencing anxiety, already have interpersonal problems? The emergency medicine is a separate subject that imposes a great challenge when astronauts are experiencing all of that. So the factors that are contributing to those problems are, I broke them down in 4. Those are physical, environmental related issues, habitability, interpersonal conflicts, and psychological. And the first 3 contribute to the latter. So physiological effects, we're not going to spend too much time here, because that's not the subject of our talk. But again, it's environment, vacuum, temperature, radiation, weightlessness, disruption of senses, and lack of sleep. Lack of sleep is, you know, of interest to us, because that's a big problem. And when we analyze the journals of the astronauts, this is one of the main things that they're mentioning: sleeping, the lack of sleep. Disruption of senses, taste probably will be related most to our talk today. It's inconclusive, but majority of researchers conclude that it's related to psychology, to the boredom and monotony. Habitability, that's a big one. Well, isolation and confinement. Even 5 days living in a room with 5 people you don't know, who speak different language, who have different cultural background, is challenging. Lack of sensory stimulation, high workload. We have a very tight schedule where you have to perform all this research, collect the data, and still maintain the balance between work and rest. Lack of privacy was challenging for me, because we had the compartments where we had our kitchen, our engineering room, our sleeping compartment, and our compartments were separated in 4 sections, 2 per person. So I had to share it with the person who was experiencing some digestive problems. So that was challenging, and it's also lack of privacy. So potentially life-threatening emergencies, technical and medical likewise. Oh, I forgot to say, 15 cubic meters. I couldn't find the 25 cubic meters, but that's what NASA reports to be a space for the astronauts who are traveling to Mars, versus the ISS, which is about 100 cubic meters, plus minus. Don't judge me on that. So I could find a picture of 15 cubic meters. So it's a little bit bigger space, but as you can see, it's small. Interpersonal conflicts is self-explanatory. Psychological. Oh, I lost. Where am I? The psychological problems are the biggest ones. So stress, we discussed the high workload, habitability issues, interpersonal, all of them are contributing to depression, anxiety, fatigue, and of course it will influence the perception, it will influence the tasks that are related to memory, to our attention, performance overall. Depression, what is depression? lack of appetite, sleeping problems. There are a bunch of criteria that anyone can look up at DSM-5. The main factor that all of those criteria should persist for at least 2 weeks to be diagnosed with depression. Anxiety, it's overreaction, something that's disproportionate to the situation, and it should influence the functionality, your day-to-day functionality. Fatigue can be within other diseases, but can be diagnosed separately as well. This one is the most boring slide in my presentation. Doesn't have a picture, but it summarizes all the researches and psychiatric and psychological issues reported in the space missions, and I took that from various researchers from ISS, from